Namaste, Green Wave. It's Miss Amy. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, we are going to do yoga food. And that comes from Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga. So today I'm going to share with you a couple different recipes that you can try at home. Again, use what you have or just follow along and then see, maybe one day in the future you'll try this recipe, or again, you'll recognize some of these items when you go grocery shopping with your family. And all the items that I found are from either Aldi's, Trader Joe's, Find Fair, Stop and Shop, or ShopRite. So they're all at local stores that you can find the spices at, or the grains from, or the vegetables from. So make it your own meal, all right, as we mindfully cook together today. So what we're going to make is a khichdi, which is a traditional Ayurvedic dish that balances our body and our mind. It balances our doshas, which are kapha, pitta, vata. But that's a lot to get into. But for the purpose of this video, just know that a khichdi is a great way to help our body with digestion. It helps if your belly feels a little off, and it just helps to boost your immunity so that you stay healthy, because health is wealth. And a khichdi is made out of rice, and today I have with me jasmine rice. You can also add in some grains, so I also have with me today quinoa. I also have with me lentils, before they spill. I have red lentils. And we're also going to add into our khichdi, we're going to add in some sauteed kale. I'm also going to show you how to make the sweet potatoes with all the spices. So you can choose to add in your sweet potatoes or just your favorite vegetables. We're also going to add in some chickpeas and some beans. And again, you can decide, if you want to add spices to it. I personally love all the yoga spices. So, for example, we have turmeric, cumin, red cayenne pepper, ginger, and I like to also add in the pink Himalayan sea salt and a little pepper. And all of these spices help our body with digestion and immunity to help us stay strong, both physically and mentally. So sometimes they're a little acquired taste to it, so you might think it might be a little spicy, but if you like spicy food, you can add in more spices to it. But you could always cook everything with just salt and pepper. So again, make it suitable for your own, taste buds, right? We're also going to add in ghee, which is clarified butter. So I'm going to show you how we're going to use the ghee. All right. And then again, I'm going to saute the sweet potatoes, and that will be our main dish. And then for dessert, I'm going to show you how to make baked apples. So it's almost like yoga apple pie that we're going to use with apples and coconut oil, and again with the spices and some raw sugar to make it nice and sweet. And then it's going to bake in the oven, and it's going to be super yummy if you decide to try this at home. And then for our beverage, we're going to make golden milk, which is again another classic Ayurvedic drink that helps the body, helps the mind. And golden milk you can use with any type of milk product, whether it be whole milk, skim milk, coconut milk, almond milk, oat milk, soy milk, whatever kind of milk you like, whether you eat dairy or dairy free. And then with golden milk, we add in some honey, some sugar, and some turmeric. Turmeric is what gives it that golden color. As you can see, turmeric is a yellow spice. So, and again, that also really helps our body with immunity. So with yoga food, we are going to mindfully make everything, because again, when we're mindful, we're present, we're aware, and we're also thinking about, where the food came from. Like, yes, I got it from Trader Joe's, but what did it take for the spice to come from Trader Joe's, right? It had to come from the factory. Again, it had to come from the farmers, the people that pick the vegetables and everything and the grains. So we want to think about, you know, the whole process of, you know, when we go grocery shopping, right? And that when it comes off the shelf, like what it took to get there so that it came into your kitchen, and also how it was prepared by the person who made your food, whether it be yourself or your family member. Again, we want to create that mindfulness so we're aware of, you know, our presence, and to create that, you know, mindfulness with every activity that we're doing, that we're present, we're aware of cutting the vegetables, of stirring everything and putting everything together, so that it again becomes a little practice of mindfulness, of meditation, and of yoga. And again, it's also important, like when we eat our food, to be in the moment, to be present with it. So to savor the flavor, to really chew, because a lot of times, you know, we're just eating so quickly, we don't even realize what we just ate. So it's about slowing down and mindfully, you know, eating what you made, or whether you poured, you know, a bowl of cereal, again, just to be more aware. All right. So with that being said, we're going to get started. And also this is a little yoga science, little yoga math, because we also have to read the directions, so we measure so that our food comes out properly. All right. So to start, because rice and quinoa and lentils take a little bit to cook, all right, sometimes it takes up to about 40 minutes for rice, maybe a little less depending on the flame of the rice. But what we're going to do to start is, for the jasmine rice, again, you can use any kind of rice. I'm using what I have. I have jasmine rice in my cupboard. And on the directions, it says to bring 2 1/4 cups of water to a boil for every 1 cup of rice. Okay, so first, and I have my measuring cups here. So I'm going to fill up my cup with up to 2 cups, and then I also have the 1/4 cup that I'll also add in first. All right, and I also have my pot ready, so I'm just going to move this so again I don't spill. Always make sure you wash your hands. It's super important, especially when you're cooking, to make sure your hands stay clean, your area stays clean. All right, and again, it's all about being mindful. So I have my pot already ready. I'm gonna turn on the water, and it said 2 1/4 cups of water. All right, so I just filled it up to about where it said 2 cups, and I'm gonna pour that in the pot. And then I'm gonna take my 1/4 cup, fill it up with the water. Again, I'm mindfully bringing it over from the sink. Gonna turn the water off so I don't waste the water. And then I also like to add a little salt in to help with boiling the water. So here's the cool thing with the salt grater. So I'm gonna turn it upside down and I'm gonna twist it, and it's gonna crank out all the Himalayan sea salt. And this is, again, really good for your body. It helps to, again, cleanse your digestive system. So I'm just gonna crank in some sea salt there to help with the pot. Right, as I say, the latch pot never boils, right? So we're gonna turn it on the stove, and I'm gonna be using all 4 of the heaters on the stove. And I'm gonna turn it on a higher flame so the water boils, and then we will measure in the 1 cup of rice. Okay, so that was for our rice. The next one for our lentils, oops, they're starting to spill a little bit. For our lentils, again, these are red lentils, all right? They're really super yummy. You gotta add a little flavor to them because they're kind of bland if you don't add any salt and pepper, the spices. So this says, in a large pot for each pound of lentils, about 2 cups, add 6 to 8 cups of water, all right? So I'm gonna put that right there. Hopefully that's not gonna fall. And once again, now I'm getting my next pot ready. And it said between 6 and 8 pots. So a little math again. I'm going to fill it all the way up to 2. 2 times 3 is 6. So I'm going to do this 3 times. All right. So we have 6 cups of water. So here's the first 2. Again, always looking, being mindful as you're measuring. Right? I'm counting by 2. That was 2. This is now 4. And then we're going to add 2 more cups to make 6, because 2 times 3 is 6. So even though the recipe calls for, 6 to 8 cups, I'm just going to add in 1 more cup, 7. So it's in the middle. So now I'm going to fill it up to where it says 1 cup. All right. So sometimes, with recipes, you have to guesstimate, right? So if it gives you an option, I say go for the middle of it. All right. Just going to turn the water off. So now this is my pot for the lentils for, again, the measurement of the lentils that I read on the bag. And again, I'm going to add in some salt to get that pot boiling. All right. And then I'm going to put this on the stove and turn on that burner. And again, as I'm cooking, I'm keeping an eye on the stove, because once the water starts to bubble and boil, that's when we're going to measure each of the grains and the beans to add into the pot. And then the last thing we're going to use to measure with the water is the quinoa. And again, this is another green. And you can always jazz up your khichdi. So you can choose to add quinoa. You don't have to. You could even add in, if you're going to make this a breakfast kind of khichdi, you could use oats and rice, so kind of like oatmeal, and add in some sugar and cinnamon. So again, you make it how you like it, all right? Because not everybody likes everything, so keeping that in mind. And now with our quinoa, it says place 1 cup quinoa and 2 cups water. So 2 cups of water. I'm gonna get my other pot handy. So my other pot is here. Once again, I'm gonna measure 2 cups. Just like this. Again, I'm mindfully pouring. And again, this is yoga. This is practicing that awareness. This is 1 step at a time, 1 breath at a time. And then I'm going to take my pot over here. Once again, put it on the back burner as I get that going. Oh, we'll add in the salt to it too. Again, adding salt is optional. You don't have to do that if you didn't want to. All right. So next, I'm going to be cutting the sweet potatoes, and I already washed the sweet potatoes, so they come, in all different shapes and sizes, but I always wash, the produce first. All right. Be super careful when you're going to use your knife. Okay. Maybe, have an adult supervision around. I'm going to cut the sweet potatoes next, but to heat up the pan, so I have my pan ready, we are going to add the ghee. So with ghee is a solid before it heats up. All right, so just to show you, sometimes it gets stuck in the heat. But ghee is a solid, all right? And in order for me to saute the sweet potatoes, I need it to be the liquid form. So what I'm going to do is scoop out some ghee, all right? And I'll show you. So first it looks kind of almost like glue. It's yellow. Ghee is really good for our joints. It's kind of like a healthier butter. Again, it's another acquired taste for, but I got this at Aldi. You can also, again, find it at ShopRite, Trader Joe's, Fine Fare, Stop and Shop, wherever you food shop locally. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you. So I took out the ghee. So see how it's kind of little mushy. It's a solid. Well, what's going to happen is I'm going to put this on the stove, all right, and it's going to heat up. So I'm going to put it on a low flame because my sweet potatoes aren't ready yet. All right, I'm just going to move this out of the way. All right, so the next step before we add any spices in is to cut up the sweet potatoes. All right, so always be careful when you're using a knife, right? Just, again, be very mindful. So to start with sweet potatoes, I always cut off the edges of it, all right? So again, I'm mindfully cutting off the edges. So I like to always cut off the edges first. And then it's your choice how you're gonna cut up the sweet potatoes. Since I'm making this specifically for a khichdi, I'm gonna cut them so they're really small, so it's easier to eat. But if you were just wanting to make sweet potatoes, it's almost like sweet potato french fries. You could keep them as circle shapes. You could cut them long ways so they look more like a french fry, like as a rectangle or a cylinder. So it's really up to you, the shape of them. I don't mind having the skin on. If you don't, want that on, you could always peel them as well, just like you're peeling a potato. And then I'm just gonna throw out the ends so I don't mix that in. I'm also checking on my pots. So the water is still getting there. They're not quite ready yet for all of our grains. All right. And then again, really careful, because I don't want to hurt myself. Again, yoga is all about taking good care of yourself. And I'm going to slowly cut the sweet potatoes. I also washed my hands before, so make sure your hands are always clean when you're using, when you're working around food, not only just for yourself, but the people that you're going to serve it to. All right, so first I'm cutting them in the circles. All right, and I will show you on screen in just 1 minute. All right, and again, with yoga food, it's all about, balancing the body and the mind. So, where can we be more mindful of what we're putting into our body, right? Where can we, look at how we can be a little healthier? Because again, health is wealth, it's really important to eat wholesome, nutritious foods to help our immune system. And that's not saying you can't have any sweetness. I love a little chocolate or some sweets, but again, in moderation and, being mindful of what you're eating. So I have the sweet potatoes in the circle shapes just to show you. Just to show you that they have the circles, and I'm going to cut them into fourths. But I hear the water starting to boil, so now I'm going to add in the grains because I hear the stove starting to bubble. And again, they all called for 1 cup. So this is 1 cup. So since the lentil one is kind of overflowing, I'm going to pour that one first. So these are the red lentils. And again, I'm going to measure up to 1 cup. And the nice thing with red lentils is they're more creamy. You're going to see that when they're done cooking, they no longer really look red. They kind of lose their red color. And to me, they remind me of like mashed potatoes or something nice and creamy. So you'll see. So they go from, again, looking like this, just so you can see the lentils. Oops, got some lentils there on my laptop. Okay, we'll move those when we're done. Okay, so you have the lentils here, and I'm gonna take these lentils and I'm gonna pour them into the pot. They stick, so get all the little lentils. Okay. Next, I'm going to, so we'll put the lentils away so I remember we already put that there. The next, we're gonna add in the rice. So again, I like jasmine rice, but you can, whatever rice you have at home. There's lots of different styles of rice. So there's basmati. Again, there's jasmine. So lots of different kinds of, they all have different textures to it. So, and again, I'm just gonna gently do that so like kind of you can see it a little bit better. And again, this is the rice that we're going to use. Okay, and I'm going to pour this 1 cup of rice into the pot. Need the rice, so I remember we already added the rice. And last to boil is the quinoa. So this is tricolor quinoa. Quinoa can come in different colors, brown, red, or like a tannish color. And then, again, I'm just gonna settle that. And then once again, this is the quinoa. I just don't want this to spill on my laptop, but here you can see the quinoa, the little grains, and they're gonna change. Right as they start to cook in the pot, they're gonna change shape. So it's kind of like, you know, our yoga practice changes, right? So we're gonna add the quinoa in. Now I'm gonna turn the heat down on everything, and I'm also gonna add in a little bit more salt just for flavor. Again, it just helps with cooking when things are boiling. And I'm gonna again turn down the flame for everything so that it's a much lower flame so we don't burn anything. And I'm also going to set the timer. So the quinoa, it says, let's see, for about 15 minutes is the quinoa. I know the rice is usually from 30 to 40 minutes, and the lentils it says from 15 to 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do to start, because I only have 1 timer, I'm going to start the timer at about 15 minutes. So I'll check in. So the timer will remind me to check in. And once again, I am putting everything on a lower flame. Oh, and check it out. Look, our ghee has now turned completely into a solid. So again, I just don't want to spill that. But you can start to see, and it's very hot, that the ghee is now a liquid. So it will be ready for sauteing. So I'm going to turn that burner off so again we don't burn the pan. All right. So coming back to our sweet potatoes, a lot going on when you're making a khichdi. What we're going to do is we're going to cut these into quarters, into fourths. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut the sweet potatoes in half. All right. So they look like half moons. All right, I put a stack together. Again, be very careful with your fingers if you're going to cut multiple ones. I've done this many times. That's why I'm just cutting more at once, but again, a little at a time. And then I'm gonna put the halves back together and again, carefully cut it 1 more time so it's in fourths. All right, so now you'll see I cut it into fourths, so they're little tiny triangles. Actually, they look like, right? So it's just easier to mix into the khichdi, right? Because if they were whole, it's just like harder to eat. So that's why I like to have them in a smaller shape. All right. So right now I'm going to continue to cut my sweet potatoes. What I also actually need to do, and I'm going to do that right after I finish these, we need to preheat the oven for our baked apples. So I'm going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees so that by the time we do our apples all together, the stove will be ready. So it just helps us to save on time. All right, so I have all of these sweet potatoes cut. What I'm gonna do is put them in the pan. Again, I already had washed my hands, so I'm gonna put them in the pan. And then I'm gonna preheat the oven. So I'm gonna turn the oven on to 350. 50. Awesome. And now I'm just going to wash my hands again since I just touched that. Again, you always want everything to stay clean as can be. All right, and now I'm going to finish, again, carefully cutting the sweet potatoes. So it's your choice. You can either cut, one sweet potato at a time, or you can cut all of them so you have all the circles first. All right, and it's really up to you how many sweet potatoes you want to cut. So again, since these were smaller, I had about 5 of them. But if you have bigger sweet potatoes, you might just need only 1 or 2. So again, it also depends, how many people you're feeding. I'm just making this for myself because it's actually a nice meal that you can make and then have for leftover for days. So it just makes it easier to, heat up a healthy meal, when you have a lot to do, right? So it's a great, easy, simple, healthy meal to make. And again, I'm going to cut them in half and then cut them in 4. So again, I'm always watching my fingers because again, I don't want to hurt myself. So I'm making the sweet potatoes into these little shapes. And again, it's up to you when we add in the spices. If you want to add in, the turmeric, the ginger, the cumin, make sure, you're aware if you have any allergies, because obviously, you don't want to get sick. Also, be mindful that not everyone likes spicy food. So sometimes less is more. Sometimes it's easier just to do a gentle, light spice, and then you can always add, more to it, because you can always add, you just can't take away, because once the spice is there, it's hard to, dilute it, all right? So that's why a little at a time works. And also, if you didn't have ghee, don't worry, you could do the same recipe with any kind of oil. So olive oil, grapeseed oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, whatever cooking oil that you have in the cupboard can also work too, okay? It doesn't have to be ghee. Ghee is just the traditional Ayurvedic oil that you would use in a khichdi, in the sweet potatoes, because sweet potatoes are very grounding for your body. So if you find that you're, you have a lot of anxiety or stress, eating a sweet potato is a good way to calm the body, calm the mind. Because think of it, it's a root vegetable. It grows from the ground. So when we feel stressed out and anxiety, when our mind feels, all over the place, we want to bring ourselves back into the earth for stability. And eating a sweet potato is a great way because it brings us back into our own stability. So because that one was a little tough to cut, I'm still going to cut it into 4ths, but those ones aren't going to be similar to the other ones. Because again, I'm mindfully watching what I'm cutting. So again, I don't cut my fingers so I don't hurt myself. So again, I'm mindfully cutting the sweet potatoes. And if you didn't like sweet potatoes, I mean, you could also do the same recipe with a regular potato. So again, do what, feels good for you, what you like to eat. But it's also good to try new food, right? It's good to try new things and to see if we like it rather than say, oh, I don't like that and not trying it, right? So it's always good to try something new and then decide if, you like it or not. So, and our taste buds change over time too. So, you might not like spice now, and then in a couple of years you might. So I didn't always like spicy food, but now I love it. So again, you just have to listen to what feels right for you. And I'm almost done here cutting the sweet potatoes. And again, while I'm cutting, I'm also just going to take a quick peek at what's boiling here. And also I want to make sure that I mix everything around a little bit, just because sometimes the grains just need a little stirring up. Stir up the pot a little bit. So again, because we don't want them to burn. And then after the sweet potatoes are cooked and we saute them, then we'll add in the kale, because kale doesn't take that very long to cook and we don't want it to burn. So I always add the kale at the end, as well as the beans and the chickpeas. All right, so those are plant protein. And you could always add any kind of meat to a khichdi if you wanted to. It's typically a vegetarian dish, but you know, if you wanted to add some chicken, shrimp, fish, any kind of meat to it, you could, right? You know, this is your practice, so eat what feels good for you, right? So remembering this is all about nourishing our body, nourishing our mind. So and then once everything cooks is when I'm gonna put it in a container to mix it all up so that it's ready for whenever I'm gonna have it for dinner or lunch. And again, you can even have it for breakfast too. It's really healthy for you. So depending if you're in the mood for something sweet or savory, you could have a khichdi for breakfast. Right? So again, it balances the doshas. And the doshas are characteristics and qualities that we all have. You know, with pitta, that's more fiery. So if you feel like, you know, you're really ambitious and you like to get things done, you're really motivated, then you have a lot of pitta, that's that heat. If you have kapha, and we, like I said, we have all of these doshas, kapha is more laid back, it's kind of really chill, it's, you rather take a nap, you rather just like lay down and take it easy. And vata is air, and it's, you know, it's having more, you're not spacey, but, you know, it's just airy, right? Think of air. So it's also, you know, with vata, you could say you have brittle bones, like your bones aren't strong sometimes. So again, it depends on, you know, the qualities of each person. Again, everyone like doesn't have brittle bones, right? We drink our dairy to keep us strong, but they each have different qualities for the doshas. So when we're applying it to food, we just want to balance all of the doshas, and a khichdi is a great way to balance the doshas. Now, before, my lentils had spilled in here, so I'm just going to pick up these lentils because I don't want the lentils to burn in the pan. All right, now I'm going to add in, so here are all of the sweet potatoes that I cut up, just like that. All right, and now I'm gonna carefully, with my knife, put them all in the frying pan. And I'm also keeping an eye on all of my lentils. Oh, look, the time, oh, that means the oven is preheated. So that means the oven is ready for our apples for the next step when we make our dessert, once we get the rest of our khichdi going. And I'm looking at our rice, looking at our quinoa, and it's all coming along there. Just gonna give it a little stir. So as you can see, I'll show you on screen, the lentils are starting to cook some more. It's kind of hard to see there. So as you can see, they're they're starting to get that mushy, you know, texture, and then they're not as orangey red before, right? So again, these are going to continue to cook. The rice and the quinoa, these are still cooking because I have them on a lower flame so I don't, again, overcook them. Okay, so the next step for our sweet potatoes is to add the spices to them, all right? So I'm gonna move this. So again, what I'm gonna do before I add in the spices is I'm just gonna make sure that all of the sweet potatoes are in the ghee. All right, mix that all around. So again, when you're cooking here, you can just keep it at salt and pepper. Like, you don't have to make it fancy. You can keep this very simple. Again, because I'm gonna eat this for my dinner later and for the rest of the week, I'm gonna make it a little spicy for me, all right? Because I love all the spices, the turmeric, the ginger, the cumin, the red cayenne pepper. So I like a little spice with it. So because this is all for me to have throughout the week, I'm gonna add it all in, but I'm gonna show you. Okay, so I made sure that all of the sweet potatoes got in the oil and the ghee. And then I'm gonna start with my spices. So I'm gonna start with my salt, and I just, you know, grind it and put it all around. That's my Himalayan sea salt. And so I know that I already used the spice. I'm gonna put it back in my cupboard so I don't use it twice. Then I'm gonna add in my regular pepper, all right? So again, maybe this is just how your sweet potatoes are just gonna be, just the salt and pepper. And again, it's very simple, salt and pepper. Oh, that's the timer, that's 15 minutes, so we're gonna check in as I just did, but we're gonna check in one more time, and we're gonna add another 15 minutes to our timer, so that everything, you know what, I'm gonna add a lid, because sometimes adding a lid will be helpful for the quinoa. So we're just gonna add that, and also for the rice, I'm gonna get another lid. All right, sometimes it just needs the lid. I just didn't want to have it cook too fast while I was doing other things. So we added the salt and pepper here. And again, this is your basic sweet potato, salt and pepper. We're gonna saute it. Now I'm gonna add all the yoga spices, the Ayurveda spices, to balance our doshas, to balance our kapha, pitta, and vata. So again, that we feel whole, because you already are whole. You know, when our body is in disease, or like when you're sick, think of dis-ease. The word disease is dis-ease, right? We want to bring our body back into whole and wholeness, because you are already whole. And again, eating good, healthy foods is really important to balance your doshas of kapha, pitta, and vata. And again, there's a lot that goes into those doshas, and for the purpose of our cooking show, we're gonna keep it simple today. All right. So the next spice that I'm gonna add is the turmeric, all right? And again, this is gonna make everything a little yellow. So I'm just gonna slowly start to shake around the turmeric. And turmeric is always good with pepper. It activates those qualities to help with immunity. So got in the turmeric. Next, I'm gonna add in the ginger. At least ginger sometimes gets stuck, so I give it a little shake, all right? And again, I'm gonna add in the ginger. Again, if you were just experimenting with it, I would say just add in a little pinch, but I know that I like ginger and turmeric, so I like to make it a little spicy. All right, the next spice is the cumin. All right, and again, you can find all these spices at the local grocery store. And I'll add all these recipes to our Google Classroom, so you'll have access to it to, again, create your own khichdi, your own Ayurvedic meal. And then last, I'm gonna add in the cayenne pepper. All All right. Okay. And again, I've been eating spices for a long time. That's why I like to add in that heat to it. So just before I mix it up, I just wanted to show you what all the spices look like, if you can see that without spilling it. And then before I put it back on the stove, I'm gonna mix it all together so that oops, oh, that fell out. See, I wasn't being mindful if that fell out. So we wanna mix up all of the sweet potatoes so the spices get on all of them. All right. And again, when I add in the spinach and the beans and the chickpeas, I'm gonna put in more of the ghee, all right? Because I don't wanna overly make everything oily, but if the other ingredients are gonna need a little extra oil, so a little at a time, less is more. I'm also listening for the sounds of the boiling water, so again, it doesn't overflow. Okay, I always wanna have that kitchen safety. All right, so now that these are all mixed up, all the spices are mixed up, I'm gonna put this on the stove on a low flame. I'm just checking in on my quinoa, my rice, everything's looking good. All right, something's fell on the floor. And again, try to clean up as you go so that you don't make a mess. So what we're gonna make next are the baked apples. All right. So again, I have the kale here, so I remember to add that in with our other ingredients. I'm not gonna really need the cutting board for now, so I'm just gonna move that there. And now I'm gonna bring over the ingredients to make our baked apples while everything else is still cooking. Okay. And again, this is still yoga. This is movement. This is mindfulness. And once again, I'm just gonna wash my hands. So this next part gets a little messy with the apples. So I have my apples. You can have any kind of apples. These are the apples that I have. So again, using what you have. I'm gonna wash the apples. All right, always wash your fruit. I'm going, and your produce. I'm going to dry them off. And I'm gonna keep these as whole apples to bake. You're more than welcome to cut it up as well and then add in the spices. I just think it tastes more like apple pie, like having the whole apple, but again, it's your choice. So I like to do the baked apples with coconut oil. You could do it with ghee, you could do it with olive oil. Again, you could do it with what you have. Typically, coconut oil is also that solid, it almost looks like glue, but since it's the summertime and it's really hot, it's usually in that liquid form all ready to go. But if we were doing this in the winter, you would notice if you took your coconut oil out of the cupboard that it looks like glue, but when you put it in your hands and you rub it together, heat it up, then it becomes a liquid, all right? So what we're gonna do, this is the fun part. We are going to add the oil to the apples as well as put the oil in the pan, all right? So I have this glass pan that I'm gonna put some oil in, just like that, so it's on the bottom. And then, again, this is where we kind of get we're gonna get messy here. I'm gonna roll the apple all the way in the oil, all right? So we're gonna cover these apples. Again, I'm gonna add a little bit more. Again, we want the whole apple to be covered in the oil. Again, I'm using coconut oil, which you can find at ShopRite, Aldi, Trader Joe's, Fine Fare. All right, so now the apples are all oily. You can see it dripping. All right, I'm just gonna wash my hands because oil and the spices, they're gonna start to stick to my hands. And since I'm doing a couple things at once, multitasking, I also just wanna check in on my sweet potatoes. I wanna stir fry them around to make sure that they're cooking. All right, so making sure that you stir them around. Here's where you can also practice a little yoga when you cook. I'm gonna move my table back a little bit. So sometimes when I cook, I can take a tree pose. I can take my leg to my foot, and I'm also now doing a pose while I'm cooking. So you can always add in some movement, some, yoga poses in, whatever you're doing. So again, I'm standing in my tree pose as I breathe in and breathe out. I'm noticing the smells. I'm also noticing my quinoa is starting to boil more. I notice my lentils need to be stirred. So again, there's a lot going on and I need to be aware so that I don't, overcook anything. So our lentils are starting to look like they're just about done. So when I notice that, I'm gonna turn off the flame. You can see, again, I don't want it to all spill, but those are the lentils. So I'm gonna turn off the lentil burner. That's the back burner. Also checking out my quinoa over here, which is bubbling. So again, I'm gonna turn it down. I'm also I notice my rice needs a little stir. All right, again, this is mindfully multitasking with cooking. All right, so again, my rice is starting to look good, but it's always good to stir the pot, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna lower those flames back to over here. So when you add the spices to your apples, you could either keep it simple with just cinnamon and some sugar, or again, you can add a little spice to it. I like to use, and I got this when it was the fall, the Trader Joe's pumpkin pie spice, because it's a spice mixture of cinnamon, ginger, lemon peel, nutmeg, cloves, and cardamom. So it's all of those warm spices already, mixed together. So I can just keep it simple and just sprinkle this on. Again, they call pumpkin pie, but it's gonna taste like that fall apple pie, pumpkin pie, smell to it. But again, that's your choice. And I also like to add in, ginger as well. All right. So once again, I'm just gonna wash my hands because I've been touching a lot of different objects. All right, and now we're gonna start to sprinkle. All right, so I'm gonna start with the pumpkin pie spice and just sprinkle it around. And sometimes with spices, you gotta give it a little knock so that they come out. And then I can also hold the apple up to, make sure it gets all of the apple, because sometimes, again, this doesn't always come out. So I'm adding this, oh, it smells so good. Oops, and then sometimes a lot of it comes out. So I wanna make sure that, again, I'm starting with the pumpkin pie spice, which has the lemon peel, the cardamom, the ginger, the clove. And again, all these spices are helpful with digestion for our body. It helps with immunity to keep our body healthy. Right, so we say healthy, health is wealth. That's kind of the motto of Ayurveda. That again, you have everything you need. Again, sometimes this spice takes a little minute or two. All right, so I'm again putting the spices on the apples. And then I can also sprinkle it in the dish because it's kind of like the sauce. So like, it's almost like its own syrup at the end. Next, I'm gonna add in just a little of the regular cinnamon, just because I like cinnamon. All right, so again, I'm gonna open up the cap there and just sprinkle a little bit on. Because sometimes in the mixtures, there's just not enough. So again, do what feels right for you when you're making your spices. Less is more, unless you know, again, what you like here. So added in the cinnamon. Also checking an eye on my sweet potatoes. Also gonna add in the ginger now, just a little extra. Again, you can, when the apples are baked, you can eat them just as they are. You can also add these to waffles or pancakes, which taste really good, or to ice cream, like vanilla or chocolate ice cream will taste really good with. So, you know, you can make it more as a dessert. And then I add in the sugar. Right? I'm gonna scoop it out. So again, add in a little bit of sweetness. And apples are naturally sweet, but again, I'm using raw organic sugar, so it's a little healthier. But again, I like a little sweetness too. All right, you need a balance. All right, so now that all of my apples are like that, I'm gonna wash my hands because my hands are full of the spices again. Again, when you know, put all that oil on the apples, that's when the spices start to stick a little bit. All right. I'm also noticing that my sweet potatoes need a little stirring. Again, because we want the sweet potatoes nice and golden brown. I'm also looking at my pots here, and I'm noticing that also the timer is about to go off, which is like perfect timing because we're gonna set a new timer for the apples. So that's literally gonna go off in about a minute. And I'm just gonna add in a little bit more coconut oil here. And then I'll show you. So again, I'm adding some coconut oil here. And I had all my spices on the apple, and just to show you, and there goes the timer, but the apples have all the spices all the way around them. There's more spice and coconut oil in the bottom of the pan. Again, these are gonna cook whole, but you could have also cut them up and then did the same procedure with covering it with the oil or coconut oil, whatever oil you're gonna use, and sprinkling it with all of the spices and the sugar. All right, so I'm making it this way. You'll see how they're gonna turn out at the end. Again, they look like their own natural little apple pies, all right? That's the timer. I'm going to now change it. So we want to cook the apples. So again, I preheated the oven, and we heard that other buzzer before, meaning the oven is now ready, and that was at 350 degrees. Now I'm going to set the timer for about 35 minutes. All right, I'm going to set the timer. All right, now I'm going to place the apples in before I do anything else. So I'm super careful as I open up the oven because it's going to be hot. And I'm really careful to place my dish of the apples here in the oven. Okay. And of course, when I take it out, I'm going to use the pot holders for my hands. Just remove all of this so we have some more space. And I hear everything boiling. Once again, I'm gonna wash my hands because they're like sticky from the spices still. Okay, so now I'm gonna take the lids off. Quinoa is still bubbling, so we're gonna let that still cook here. I might switch burners because sometimes the back burner cooks better than the smaller one, so I'm just gonna switch them. I'm also just going to stir my rice, because again, just to show you, the rice has cooked. It's really hot. All right, so there it is, but it needs to rest a little. So I'm just gonna, again, mix it up so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. The quinoa is still cooking. The red lentils are just about done. And sweet potatoes, they're still coming along. I'm still sauteing them. All right. And again, we're gonna add to the sweet potatoes the kale. And now I'm also gonna add in the kidney beans and the chickpeas. So I'm gonna use the can opener and I'll show you in just one moment. So I take the can opener, plug it in, put just to show you. Again, you can use any kind of beans or chickpeas. So I just have, again, I'm using what I have in my cupboard. So I have the red kidney beans and the chickpeas. So I'm going to use the can opener. Also, I have my colander because I'm going to drain it. Okay. And then I'm going to pour out the kidney beans. So they all come out. Perfect. Next is I'm going to open the chickpeas. And once again, I'm going to put them in this colander to drain them. And then I'm going to wash them just to get any of that extra stuff off them. All right. Now, I'm not going to use all of the beans and the chickpeas because that would be too much. So I'm only going to, use some of it. So here they are out of the can. And then the rest I'll save to add into any other dishes. So I have this ready for when the sweet potatoes are ready. And I'm also going to use the kale. I'm going to make sure I wash it before I use it. So making sure. Oh, you just look at your kale. Sometimes, leafy greens, they can get icky faster than others. So there's one. Take that out. All right, and I'll have that ready to add in. The baked apples are still baking. We just put those in. I'm still stir frying the sweet potatoes. The quinoa is still cooking. I'm going to mix that all around again. And again, and so yeah, the lentils, oh, they look delicious. Just so you can see, the lentils are now nice and thick. All right. And I'm just gonna put them down over here because we are now ready to make our golden milk. Now, if you didn't want to make it and you wanted to do it the easy way, Trader Joe's sells golden milk already made for you. So all you have to do is pour. So this is turmeric, ginger, coconut beverage, a smooth and creamy non-dairy beverage. So you could easily buy it, or it's fun to actually make it. So check it out. We're gonna use a milk product. So again, I'm using what I have. I have the coconut oil, or coconut milk, well, I do have coconut oil, but this is the coconut milk. I love anything coconut. So I'm gonna use coconut milk as my milk base. And then I'm gonna add in some honey. And again, the golden part comes from the turmeric And I'm only gonna add a pinch, a little tiny bit of pepper. Because again, that activates the turmeric. So again, I don't want it like spicy, but just like a little pinch of pepper for when I heat it up. So I'm gonna get another pot out. All right, and again, I'm going to measure about, 1 cup of coconut milk. All right, just move that so you can see. I'm gonna get a new measuring cup, so it's clean. Right. So this is a half a cup, but I'll do it twice. All right, so I'm gonna measure my coconut milk. All right, we have a half a cup. And we're gonna finish it all. Perfect. All right. All right, so I added in the milk product. Again, you could use whatever milk you have. Dairy milk, non-dairy milk. Then I'm gonna start to add a little bit of turmeric, all right? So as you can see, first it's pretty plain, pretty white. Again, I don't wanna spill that, but I know it's a little hard to see. Oops, just like that. All right, now I'm gonna change it so it's gonna be golden, all right? Think of the sun, think of golden milk. So I'm gonna take the turmeric and just start to sprinkle in a little turmeric. Oops, okay, that came out really quick. So that's all the turmeric I'm gonna use there. I have a spoon. I'm gonna stir that. So now you're gonna see that this is becoming golden while I'm listening also to the sweet potatoes. All right, again, multitasking. This is yoga, breathing, being mindful. All right, so now the liquid is starting to look more golden for our golden milk. I'm gonna add in some honey. All right, add in some honey. It gives it that sweetness. And here's where just like a little pinch of pepper, a little pinch of pepper, a little, again, it's not coming out, a little pinch, perfect. All right, and again, that activates that turmeric. And I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar because again, I noticed that the turmeric came out, so I kind of want to balance that. So carefully, I'm gonna shake in some sugar, all right, to add in that sweetness. And then I'm going to mix it all around. All right. And then I'm gonna heat it on the stove. But before I do that, I'm gonna show it to you before. Because once it heats up, the honey is gonna start to melt, all the flavor is gonna come together. So this is our golden milk, as you can see. Whoops, I guess it's hard to see that, but check it out. It now turned, again, that golden color. And when it's done, I'm gonna put it in a cup for you to see, but that is the golden milk. And again, you know, you could always find, even if you can't find this at Trader Joe's, I'm sure other stores might sell a variety of this kind. But again, you could just easily also open it from, you know, the box, right? So now I'm gonna put this on the stove, again, on a low flame. So it heats up, so it's nice and warm, like a cup of tea. All right. The sweet potatoes, they're still coming along here. All right, I'm mixing that up. Same with our quinoa. That we're gonna turn off. And also what I'm gonna start to do, because I see my rice is done, I'm going to bring the pan over to start to mix this all up. So make sure you have a big enough dish, all right, to fit everything. So first I'm gonna, since the rice is done, I'm gonna add that first. And again, you can, add whatever grain you want first. It doesn't have to be the rice, but I'm just doing that because what happened was when the pan got a little hot, the rice is now sticking to it, so just want to make sure that it all comes out. All right, so I'm going to smooth out the rice, kind of like a layer, and then we're going to mix it all together. Okay, that's that. Gonna stir up our sweet potatoes again. I'm also keeping an eye on the golden milk. All right, I see it's heating up. It's starting to look more golden because again, we have that honey. We have that turmeric. Next, I'm gonna add in, what did I do that? Oh, there it is. So I had my rice first. Now I'm gonna add in the red lentils, which no longer really look red. They have thickened up. And again, they look like mashed potatoes. And again, lentils are great plant-based protein. All right. So we're gonna add it in. And before I mix it, I just wanna show it to you. Sometimes the lentils stick to the pan, so I want to get the water running in it and the dish detergent in there so it's easier to clean up. And before I mix it all together, just so you can see our khichdi coming together, we have the red lentils and the rice. And again, this is your khichdi. Make it how you'd like it. And I'm going to start to mix it all up. All right. Mix up the lentils with the rice. All right. So that every scoop will have this yummy taste. And again, all the spices are in the sweet potatoes, which we're also going to add on. You could also, if you weren't making the khichdi with any vegetables, you could just add in the oil, the ghee, the butter, and sprinkle your spices on, whether it be salt, pepper, turmeric, cumin, ginger, red cayenne pepper. So again, I'm making it with the yoga Ayurvedic vegetables of the sweet potatoes and the kale, but you can use what you have. You can add in, tomatoes, corn, peas, whatever you have, or no vegetables at all. Maybe you don't like vegetables, and that's okay, right? So this is coming along great, our khichdi. This was all empty. I'm gonna throw this out. And I am, once again, stir frying these sweet potatoes. Again, I could take a tree pose. It smells so delicious. I wish you guys could all smell this and taste it, but I really hope that you make your own. All right. And then, since I see that the sweet potatoes are getting ready for the next step, I'm gonna add in the beans and the chickpeas. All right, so I'm gonna start to add in. Again, I'm not gonna do all of them because that's a lot. All right, I'm gonna save this to put in another container for later. Now I'm gonna add in my kale. I'm gonna wash it off first. Oops, sorry about that. I washed off my kale. I'm gonna sprinkle in the kale. And kale is a great leafy green, has good iron, good source of vitamins. Kale, like on its own, is kind of bitter. So, you know, adding in the spices makes it a little bit more, you know, tasty. All right, so I'm adding in all that kale. And then now that I added in the kale and the chickpeas and the beans, once again, I'm gonna start to saute so that it all mixes in. And again, it's gonna continue to cook. So I'll show this to you in 1 second. So check it out. My pan now has the kale, the chickpeas, and the kidney beans. All right, so it's gonna continue. The longer it cooks, the more it's gonna kind of like get mushy, kind of. So that's how we'll know it's done. So again, keeping our eyes on everything. Also, I'm stirring the golden milk. As you can see, the golden milk is coming out more golden. Oops, again, I don't want to spill this on screen, but just so you can see, the golden milk is turning golden, right? Think of the golden sun. And it looks like our quinoa is just about ready. So I'm gonna start to drain the quinoa. All right, and since that colander is full, I'm gonna use a slotted spoon to, again, add in the quinoa here. So quinoa again looks like this, so you can see. And sometimes it's hard with quinoa because it's so tiny that when you put it in the colander, it all like spills through. So that's why I'm doing it this way. I'm scooping it out, I'm letting it drain, and then I'm also adding it in because, again, I also don't want to overflow the pan. All right, so again, I'm adding a little at a time. All right, that's my quinoa. All right, I'll put this down. And again, so you can see that it's layered. There's all the quinoa, and you can see it's piping hot. I'm gonna also, again, mix this in because, again, the last step to add to our khichdi is the veggies and the beans. All right, so once again, just mix it all up. We're mindfully mixing. If you are just making this as the grains and the beans, I would say add in a little oil so that when you have it in the fridge, it doesn't get like dry and hard. But again, we're gonna add in the sweet potatoes and all that, which has a lot of oil in it. So I'm not adding in because it's gonna already be a little oily. So again, I'm just mixing this all together. I hear my kale is starting to cook. Again, it smells delightful. I wish you could all try it. But again, I hope you have fun making your own. I'm also looking at our timer. We have about 14 minutes left on our apples, but I'm just gonna quickly peek in the stove to make sure that they're doing okay. Yes, they're starting to bubble a little bit, so they're right on time. Also smells great. And then our golden milk is looking good. I think what I'm gonna do is move that to a glass so you can see it. And I'm gonna carefully pour the golden milk because this doesn't have the right like a thing to pour it with. So I'm gonna, again, mindfully, ooh, look at that, mindfully make our golden milk, just like that. I'm gonna let it cool because it is a little hot, all right? So that is our golden milk. Our apples are almost ready. And again, I'm just letting this cool because that's super hot. And again, cooking is a fun exercise that you can do with your family. You can, cook for yourself or cook for someone else, but always, ask an adult if you can use the kitchen, right? Make sure that that is okay before you start cooking things. Again, our kitchery is coming out great here with our veggies for it. And then again, just try to clean up after yourself as you're cooking. We used a lot of different tools today. And if you notice, we use similar spices for the various dishes, for our apples and for the sweet potatoes. So again, having it, as a mindful practice. And again, all of these spices, the Ayurvedic spices, help with our digestion. They help with our immunity. So again, good for the body, good for the mind. And in just a second, I'm gonna add the kale and the beans to the kitchery dish. All right, so again, this is looking great, smells delicious. We are just about ready for our next step in our kitchery, but again, see how it all comes together. It's cooling, again, it's still hot, so I have to be careful. And I'm about to add this in. Again, mixing around all the sweet potatoes and the chickpeas and the kidney beans and the kale. Again, a really good nourishing meal, whether it be lunch, dinner, or even breakfast. Right? Very grounding, very soothing for the body, for the mind. And just to show you how, see how the kale turned a little darker and it's all mixed together. And what I'm gonna do is start to add this in. So again, I'm so careful and slow with adding in because also I'm gonna mix it in. So I'm adding it. I'm just gonna stop, put this down, use my spoon. Oh, the water's still running. Oh. Again, we wanna mix this all in. And you're gonna see, as we start to mix it in, it's gonna turn more yellow with our turmeric. Again, all of the spices start to come together. All right, so again, I'm mixing it all together so that I can add in some more. And I'm going to continue adding in some more. All right, and once again, I'm going to mix this up. It looks and smells so delicious. So again, I'm careful when I'm mixing it. Again, it's super, super hot. I don't know if you can see the steam from there, but there is steam. And again, I'm just mixing all the rice, lentils, quinoa. And once I show it closer on screen, you're gonna start to see the yellow texture from the turmeric, just like our golden milk with our yellow. Again, turmeric is such a traditional classic Ayurvedic spice. So again, I'm just mixing this all together. And again, feel free to get creative with your kitchery. You can call it a kitch, right, for short. Balances the doshas. And we'll let that sit for another minute or so. And see, it looks like I got all the and then, again, this is very hot, be careful. Ta-da, you have your kitchery, all right, as all of the beans, the chickpeas, the red lentils, the basmati rice, or the jasmine rice, or it could be basmati, it's kind of similar. The kale, the sweet potatoes, the ghee, the turmeric, cumin, ginger, Himalayan pink sea salt, the pepper, the red cayenne pepper. So again, this is gonna be really good and hearty to eat. It's gonna balance all the doshas. It's helpful for your immunity so you stay healthy, so you don't get sick, and it helps our digestion, right? Because health is wealth. So I'm just gonna put this down, and our apples, ooh, they look done. So I'm gonna take our apples out of the oven. Gonna put on my oven mitts so again I don't burn myself. Ooh, super hot. Again, watch it out. It's so hot. It is bubbling here, as you can hear it. Put this down for a minute. Ooh. And I'm gonna carefully, we'll move the screen down so you can see. I'm gonna carefully, just so you can see, it is bubbling here. And you can see that the apples, they kind of plumped up a little bit. And we have that syrup, that juice from the coconut oil at the bottom. These apples are super hot. Do not eat them right now, absolutely not. Again, you want them to cool. But again, here you have all of our food that we made today. And I'll bring this over a little closer. And remembering that you can get creative, use what you have with what you have at home, right? Or if you go food shopping with a family member, you can ask like, hey, can we try out these spices? So try it out here. Here you have all of our yoga food that we made, the khichdi, the apples, the golden milk, and I'll hold it up one more time just so you can see. So we have our whole meal here. We have our delicious, yummy khichdi. Again, yoga food, we mindfully made. We can eat together. Well, you can eat at home and I'll eat here and we can pretend we're all together. All right, our khichdi. We have our bubbling baked apples, just like apple pie, a little healthier. Oops, that apple fell. That's okay. So see our apples here and our golden milk as well. All right. So health is wealth. I hope you enjoyed learning about yoga food and cooking with me. Again, I will post the recipes in our Google Classroom. So you can try it out anytime and again, change your recipe. And if you do happen to make it, please share in our classroom so we can see what your beautiful yoga food creation looks like and talk about, did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you add something to it, take something away from it, how you made it specially for you. So again, yoga food is from the sister science of yoga called Ayurveda, because health is wealth. And this is how we can stay strong in our body, strong in our mind, because we're not just Long Branch, we are Strong Branch. So thank you so much, Green Wave, for joining me today in our little yoga cooking show here at my house. So thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Namaste.